Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the February 28th, 2023 Development Review Commission hearing. The Development Review Commission is created to hold public meetings and hearings to provide analysis and recommendations to the City Council regarding general land use policies and applications, where the Commission has recommendatory power, and to render final decisions on specified applications where the Commission has final decision-making power, including but not limited to all aspects of a proposed and future development. The Development Review Commission recognizes that the creation of desirable environments throughout the city for residents, businesses, and industry is a prime requisite for the interdependence of land values, aesthetics, and good site planning by promoting harmonious, safe, attractive, and compatible development that is therefore considered to be in the best interests of public health, safety, and general welfare. Any person aggrieved by a final decision of the Development Review Commission may file an appeal to the City Council within 14 calendar days after the Development Review Commission has rendered its decision. Development Review Commission recommendations to the City Council are not final decisions. Let's see. Today with us on the Commission, at my far right, we have Commissioners Robert Miller, Don Casano, Vice Chair Andrew Johnson. I'm Chairman Mike DiDomenico. Commissioners Barbara Lloyd, Linda Spears, and Joe Forte. With us from staff today, we have Director Jeff Tamulevich, Ryan Levesque, Steve Abrahamson, Diana Kaminsky, Lee Jimenez, Karen Stovall, Lily Drosos, Joanna Berry, and Jason Wolf, keeping us on time. During the public hearing, if you are a member of the public, not the applicant or staff, but if you're a member of the public who wishes to be heard on a specific case, we first of all ask that you fill out one of these cards. Several of you have already turned these in. That's how we make sure we don't miss you when we're doing a case, so that we don't fly right by and don't give you your chance to come up to the podium and speak. When you come up to the podium, real informal, you're just going to address the commission by starting by giving us your first and last name and your city of residence. We don't need any more details. We don't need phone numbers or exact addresses. And then you'll just take us, you'll have 3 minutes to make your case. If you're in the middle of something at the end of the 3 minutes, we'll give you a little bit of time to wrap up. There's lights somewhere. Where are our lights? There. And the little lights, oh, that's a much smaller box than we used to have. I like that. You'll get a green light, and at the 2-minute mark, at the 1-minute mark, it'll turn to yellow, and then red means you've hit your 3 minutes and wrap up as soon as you can. In addition to that, we are going to have several items right now proposed for what we call our consent agenda. And the purpose of the consent agenda is so that we can vote on multiple items in one single motion and one single vote. And it's our intention to vote in the affirmative, meaning to pass or approve those cases. So I'm going to kind of give a heads up for people who've just gotten here in the audience. If you are here and wish to be heard on item number 4, the Finlayson residence, or items 6 and 7, please fill out a card and hand those to us, because those 3 items will be on our consent agenda, and we'll handle that right at the beginning of the meeting and pass those 3 items. So that's what we'll do with those 3. And now I've misplaced. Well, we'll go off the old copy. All right, so our first item tonight is 2 sets of meeting minutes, both for a study session and a regular meeting that happened on January 24th of this year. In pre-session, we mentioned one name spelling correction that we read into the record. So I am looking for a motion to approve those 2 sets of minutes with that correction. Commissioner Casano?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for approval of the Development Review Commission study session and regular meeting session of January 24th, 2023.
And do we have a second? Vice Chair?
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Casano and seconded by Vice Chair Johnson. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed? None. I will be abstaining because I was not present at that meeting, and those minutes are approved by a vote of 6-0. The next items on our agenda are those cases 4, 6, and 7. Have we missed anybody? Anyone wish to be heard on those cases? Seeing none, I will call for a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda consisting of items 4, 6, and 7.
Do we have a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded by Commissioner Spears. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. And that consent agenda is approved 7-0. That brings us to item number 3. This is the request for a use permit to allow a co-locatable 80-foot high wireless telecommunication facility, a mono elm, not a pole, but an elm, for Crown Castle Desert Palm Church. This is a site on Guadalupe. At this point, we would ask that the applicant come up and give us a presentation, and we'll follow up with staff, and then we'll get into public comments.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. I'm Mike Campbell. I am a consultant for Crown Castle. I reside in Peoria. First off, I want to thank staff for their guidance on the process and thank the Commission this evening for the opportunity to present our case. Crown Castle is proposing a new 80-foot tall mono elm tree at 1230 East Guadalupe. Mono elm is a replacement or relocation site for the T-Mobile site that's located at Mount Marcos Deniza High School. The underlying lease there is expiring, and it was a business decision not to renew. The height of the mono elm, 80-foot, is designed to match the height of the existing structure that T-Mobile currently is on at the high school. That structure has a 3-foot concrete foundation above grade and a 77-foot pole, therefore the 80 for 80. That site has been providing network coverage for this community around the school and up and down Lake Shore and over across Guadalupe for nearly 20 years. Mono elm is also designed for co-location for 2 additional carriers. That's shown on the site plan that was submitted. And I apologize, I had the presentation backwards. I thought staff presented with the site plan up on the screen. So the location at 1230 East Guadalupe meets the Tempe design requirements for wireless sites. The most significant part is that we meet setbacks. Setbacks per code for adjacent residential is 2 foot back for every 1 foot up. With the 80-foot tree, we are required to be 160 feet back from the property line adjacent to residential. The nearest residential is on the north, and we currently sit 166 feet south of that north property line. Then there's a 16-foot alley. So the cumulative is 182-foot setback. The site is also set back approximately 405 feet from the east property line adjacent to La Tierra condominium property. The proposed site, as reviewed and directed by staff, will include the planting of 19 1.5-inch caliper Chinese elms along the north property in a staggered fashion to build some additional screening, and 14 along the Guadalupe Road street frontage. These trees, once these are planted, these will be bringing the property up to city requirements for landscaping. When we talk about relocation of an existing site, it's difficult because you have an established mature network, and the target is to relocate within 1,500 feet of the existing. The relocation for this site is 1,300 feet east of the existing and almost the same distance north of Guadalupe Road. When you look at a wireless network, think of honeycomb. So when you've got one site that's being impacted, we try not to modify that too much, because if you do, then it's a domino effect. It just adds to it and adds to it. So we do have RF engineers here this evening that will go through the presentation that is loaded up. The design of the site over the history of the wireless industry, the jurisdictions have received input from the municipality or from the communities that drive to the carriers to utilize facilities that don't look like cell towers, don't look like a pole with antennas on it. So the alternate design verticality, in this case a tree, is what we have resolved to. It does allow the freedom for the carriers to have their full array screened by leaves, and it's the best that can be done. And so we work with that. This site, as I mentioned, will allow for 2 other carriers on here. So once this site is up and operational, T-Mobile will come off of the light pole that's over at the high school, and there's a chance that 1 or 2 of the other carriers over there will follow suit. I reviewed the comment cards that staff sent over to me, and there's a common comment aligns as follows: height. Everyone is concerned about the height and why do we need to be taller than what was. The current site is 80 feet. We're matching that. As I noted, it's the same distance off of Guadalupe Road, and the setbacks, we meet the setbacks to the east and to the north. Another common comment was about property value impact. This is subjective. I mean, one of the citizens emailed in about a report from the National Association of Realtors that had a percentage up or down. I have another report that says it's good for a 5% increase in value. But the important thing here is that with today's smart homes, the smart homes are only as good as where the nearby signal is. And to maintain this signal in this area is important. Therefore, this site is important to keep that up. It's also important for first responders. And the RF engineers will show you that if this site doesn't go up, the other one will go away. And it creates a significant hole in the area for its coverage. One thing I didn't address, but I will, is the equipment area. It will be screened by an 8-foot CMU block wall, painted, designed to match the existing church facility, so it doesn't stick out. All the equipment will be behind that. It will be secured and below the wall top there. So as I mentioned, we do have engineers from, I'm going to read the name, Bib Wabcos Consulting. I always mess up the name when I'm saying it, but they're here to explain the impact of the network, and I can answer any questions that you may have.
You kind of led off with the statement that this was a business decision to move off of the Marcus Deniza site and onto the church site. Business decision by the high school district or by the cell operator?
Chairman Delmonico, that I'm not totally privy to, but I am aware that there was negotiations to extend, and those negotiations fell apart.
Okay. And the lease ends approximately when?
I don't have the exact date, but it's coming up in this year from what I understand.
In 2023?
Yes.
Okay. Questions, commissioners? Thank you.
Thank you. Gentlemen? Here's your remote for the PowerPoint.
Bring that PowerPoint back up. Okay. Good evening, Commission. My name is David Dotson. I live in Litchfield Park, Arizona. I'm here on behalf of Crown Council to discuss the replacement site, Desert Palm Church. I've been with the industry about 8 years, so I'm a little more than green. I want to give you a little overview of coverage versus capacity. Capacity is providing bandwidth or processing capacity to service customers in the area. These areas are large numbers of users in specific areas, and it's a lot. There are users that are demanding high amounts of data rates. Areas with a large amount of indoor users as well. And then as far as coverage goes, it provides service where service does not exist, calls drop or no service. An example of capacity is like if you go to a holiday party at a relative's house, first thing the kids ask for is the Wi-Fi password. So if all the kids jump on the Wi-Fi, speeds start to slow, or you got Netflix up and it starts buffering, things like that. Coverage would be like your trip from here to Flagstaff. As you're driving up the I-17, you're on the phone, and then the call drops. That's an example of coverage. Capacity, so the proposed replacement tower will continue the current level of throughput for customers in the area surrounding the proposed site. It'll also to continue to provide throughput for indoor users in the area. Coverage-wise, it'll continue to provide coverage along East Guadalupe Road, South Lakeshore Drive, as well as provide reliable coverage in surrounding homes and businesses. The importance of the site, 96% of Americans own a cell phone. 57% of Americans' homes rely exclusively on cell phones, and 84% or more of 911 emergency calls are made from a wireless device. So a little bit about the proposed site, 75-foot top of steel mono elm tower, total height with appurtenances will be 80 feet. It's on 1230 East Guadalupe Road. The anchor tenant is T-Mobile at 75 feet. Second anchor tenant would be AT&T at 65 feet. Why here? Current tower lease is expiring and the school decided not to continue the lease. Without a replacement site, the coverage and capacity will significantly be reduced in the area of service. And in order to duplicate the existing service, a replacement site is needed that is close to the existing site location. So here you see PH10209C. That is our current site with the dark green showing coverage within commercial buildings. Light green shows coverage within residential homes. Yellow shows coverage that you would have in a vehicle, and then orange would show coverage that you could only have outdoor. The proposed site mimics about the same as what the existing site shows. And then without the site entirely, if this relocation doesn't get approved, there's a lot of coverage and capacity that will be diminished. And that is all I have. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Commissioners? Thank you. Is that it for your team at this point?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll have staff come up and give a staff report.
Good evening, Commission, Chair DiDomenico, Vice Chair Johnson. My name is Lee Jimenez. I'm a senior planner in the Community Development Department in the Planning Division. So just some facts to the case. Crown Castle is proposing a new south facility at, which is approximately 250 feet west of, or east, I'm sorry, of South Lakeshore Drive in the R16 single-family residential district. The facility, as you know, will have 3 carriers. T-Mobile will be the first at the top. This facility replaces the facility T-Mobile currently has at Marcos Deniza High School. The scope of the request includes the construction of a 1,600 square foot equipment compound that will be on site and just located north of the Mono Elm. And the facility will be accessed from the existing driveway along Guadalupe Road, the west driveway. So tonight's hearing, the request is for a use permit to allow a new co-locatable 80-foot high wireless telecommunications facility as a Mono Elm. Here's a look at the site plan. The facility is shown just west of where it says "See Enlarged Site Plan," if you can see that font. And then north of that is the enclosure, and to the north of the alley is R16 single-family subdivision. And then to the west is the high school play field, practice field, and then to the east is our condos, and then there's additional single-family across Guadalupe to the south. And then here's just an enlarged view of the facility and the compound. Just an elevation of the Mono Elm elevations. And you can see the top is where the first carrier will be located, and then the 2 below there at the 65 and I believe 55-foot radiation center. And then here we have our photo simulations. This one's looking from the north down the alley towards the church site. So on the existing view, there's nothing, and then the proposed view, you'll see the simulated facility. This view is from the northwest, from Lakeshore and Libra. This simulation here is from the southwest at the intersection of Guadalupe and Lakeshore. This one is from the neighborhood to the south. This is looking to the north towards the site. And then the view here is shown from the parking lot, or the front of the parking lot of the church site. So there's no neighborhood meeting required for this use permit request. And staff has received several emails and phone calls in opposition to the request. An update to this number I have about a dozen comments in opposition. The opposition is generally concerned about the height and the proximity to the residential uses. And then other reasons for opposition, they surround leasing terms, which are noted in the comments between the Crown Castle and the school district, and as well between Crown Castle and the church site. So based on the information provided by the applicant, the analysis provided by staff and the staff report, staff supports approval of the case, of the request. However, subject to conditions of approval. We do have a condition of approval that requires the addition of buffer trees along the north, along the alleyway, and then supplementing the required street trees that are to be provided along Guadalupe to the south. And at maturity, the Chinese elms will grow to be about, I believe it's about 50 to 60 feet in height. And then canopies can be pretty wide, up to 60, 70 feet in width at maturity. And probably in 10 years, this tree will grow up to be about 19 feet in height, these elm trees. And that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Jimenez, if the elm trees grow to a height of 50 feet, how long does that take to get to 50 feet?
I do not know the full answer to that. I just know that at the 10-year mark, it gets to 19 feet, but at absolute maturity, it can reach up to 60 feet in height.
They grow 3 to 6 feet each year.
So,
As noted in the audience, someone noted that it grows 3 to 4 feet, 3 to 6 feet a year.
so optimistically, it could take, well, I don't know, 8 years, but that's what contradicts what you're telling me, that it takes only, that it takes 10 years to get to 19, so those numbers don't seem to align.
I'm just using landscape information and detail that we use when we evaluate all of the landscape plans.
All right, thank you.
What size trees are you calling out for them to put in to begin with?
Well, the arterial trees are required to be 1.5-inch caliper and 36-inch box. And to the north, they just have to at least provide 1.5-inch caliper trees. No minimum box size requirement for that.
Okay. Other commission questions? Yes, Vice Chair.
I have a question on well, I'll start with the trees. So the proposed views that you showed, those don't show any of the landscaping improvements, right?
It's a site plan, so they just note where the trees will be conceptually located. But should this be approved and they go through the building permit process, the landscape will be reviewed, and so they'll check for conflicts with underground utilities or any other conflicts that would impede the location or locating those trees in those designated areas.
And those will also be irrigated, I assume, in some way?
That's correct.
And my question, though, thank you for that additional information. My question related to the photographs that showed the mono elm in place. That doesn't show any of the proposed trees, correct?
That's correct. It does.
They were not rendered? Okay. So that's just showing the mono elm and not any of the potential improvements with the trees. Okay.
That's correct, Commissioner Johnson.
The pole that is at Marcos Deniz, I understand from the previous presentation that lease is up. Will that have to be removed, that pole?
In our zoning and development code, there is a standard requirement that if a site is not used, it needs to be decommissioned within 30 days.
Okay, so the lease is up, then they have 30 days basically to remove that.
They'll be required to remove it, that's correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Miller.
I'm sorry, one more follow-up. I'm looking at attachment 19, the photographic simulation, which shows basically this shows the existing site, and if I'm seeing that correctly, there's basically no landscaping along the north side along that alley. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And there's relatively little elsewhere on the site.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Commissioner Lloyd.
Thank you. To follow up on Vice Chair Johnson's question about the existing tower when the lease expires, are there other carriers on that existing tower that will remain, so it won't necessarily come down after the expiration of this lease?
I'll probably let the applicant answer that question, but from my understanding, T-Mobile facility is on a light pole, and I believe there's several other carriers at the site, but they're not located on the same poles. But I'll let the applicant speak to that. I'm just going off of my recollection.
Okay, I just want to be clear for any expectations that the public may have in terms of what may or may not come down when the lease expires. So I don't know if the applicant wants to come up now and answer that, or
Will the applicant have an opportunity to respond to staff's presentation?
Okay.
In the,
Yeah, they
public?
will. We'll bring the applicant. You can save that answer, and we'll have you come up because there's going to be some public questions, I'm sure, to address also.
okay, thanks.
Commissioner Casano.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Lee, a quick question. I'm looking at in our presentation, page 6, attachment H, which deals with limitations that have been imposed by the Federal Communications Agency, dealing with what we can and cannot do. In other words, we can't really deny a request for construction unless we modify wireless services. There are a lot of restrictions placed on the communities, and therefore we have to work within those constraints. Am I correct on that?
That's a correct statement. The purview of the city, of their jurisdiction, does not look into the signals, the RF signals, and whether they're at healthy levels or not. That's the FCC's. The FCC has acknowledged that. Local jurisdictions don't have the ability to deny based off of that solely. But I'll let the applicant also speak on that behalf, since they're more versed on the FCC rules.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Lee.
Thank you.
Steve, I think at this time we have a handful of comments to be read into the record. Do you have those handy that you'd want to read in?
Yes, thank you, Chairman DiDomenico, Vice Chair Johnson, members of the commission. I have 4 comment cards to be read into the record. And just as Lee had indicated, there is some mention of health, and that is not something that can be discussed by rule of the FCC. So first one up is from, and there, by the way, all 4 of these are in opposition. First one is from Cesar Suardi, Tempe resident, in opposition. Indicates, good evening, I'm a condo owner and resident of La Tierra condo complex next to Desert Palm Church. I strongly oppose the Crown Castle building a new 80-foot communication tower because Crown Castle doesn't want to pay a rent increase on the existing tower on the Marcos de Niza High School property. I am sure the city of Tempe is sensitive regarding school funding and approving a permit that allows a multi-billion-dollar corporation to avoid rent increase that should go to Marcos de Niza High School. This would be a disservice to the community, without even mentioning the damage to property values, to landscape, and health concerns of the condo complex with 120 units. Second letter also in opposition. This one comes from Ryan Demmer, Tempe, Arizona, representing himself. Good evening, distinguished Good evening, distinguished commission members. I apologize I am unable to submit these comments personally due to a conflict in schedule with my child's continuing endeavors into professional basketball. I am regrettably submitting my opposition to the proposed 80-foot cell tower requested at Desert Palm Church. The first point I would like to make is for the devaluation of property values located near the proposed location. The National Association of Realtors website reports a 2.65% loss at properties within 2,362 feet of the base station, which puts the entire La Tierra condominium community at risk. Additionally, losses up to 9.78% may be incurred by those with a direct view of the disingenuous elm tree. I am not in favor of such financial disadvantage simply because Crown Castle has partnered with Desert Palm Church and placed a new structure too close to my residence. While on the topic of disadvantages, I am concerned of the yet undetermined long-term health effects being introduced to my community should this project be approved. It is documented the American Cancer Society and the Federal Communications Commission agree there are no identifiable studies that are needed for possible long-term risk to exposure of non-ionizing radiation. At one time, it was acceptable to use lead pipes, to use asbestos as a flame retardant in buildings, but that no longer is the case today. In the event of such a hazard is discovered, I want to eliminate any potential threat to my family, the families of my community, and the families of the surrounding neighborhood by opposing this project. Therefore, it is my opinion that this project cease this evening, and I am encouraging the commission to deny the application for use permit. Thank you for your time and consideration. Third is also an opposition from Mikhail Ryan of Tempe, Arizona. I object to the Crown Castle Desert Palm Church notice. I have a 2-year-old daughter and would hate to have an 80-foot tower in our backyard essentially. She already has medical problems, and the last thing we need is to be adding any more. Not only that, but this tower will decrease my home value by 7%. I, Mikhail Ryan, and fully and utterly opposed to the Crown Castle Desert Palm Church request. I am one of many who wants this idea shut down right away. Take a step back and consider the families you'll be imposing on. End of letter. Fourth and final is from John Mershon of Tempe, Arizona. It is a rather lengthy letter. I hope I can read it within 3 minutes. This tower proposed will be an eyesore and unsightly. No other structures are over 3 stories tall for several miles surrounding this property. Very minimal trees in the area reach over 50 feet in height, and this proposal is for an 80-foot elm tower. Sunsets and views of South Mountain will never be the same, even if this was just a 30-foot tall tower. The location of the facility is being installed is on desolate desert property and is surrounded by residential properties. The Desert Palm Church does not have trees reaching above 30 feet in height. Health concerns for local residents are at a significant risk with the tower's proximity very close to full-time residents. This tower will drop our property values. Vast amounts of data have been collected clearly detailing decreases in property values from 7% and over 20% when the tower is constructed within 1,500 feet of the tower. The La Tierra Board, community members, local neighbors, and I are very concerned that there seems to be a sprawling nature to these skyscraper towers. The applicant, Crown Castle, is a publicly traded company, and in 2022, their net income was $1.6 billion, and in 2021, their net income was $1.1 billion. During these economic hard times, this is a significant increase, and we feel this provides plenty of evidence they are focused on profits alone. This land permit should not be accepted, and we feel it is in the best interest of the city and the community to have Crown Castle continue their lease agreement with Marcos Deniza. The high school currently has 3 towers, and to the best of my knowledge, discussing with representatives of the school district and Lee Jimenez, senior planner with the city of Tempe, there were current attempts to have the facility constructed on school grounds. Yet there was a discrepancy on the amount Crown Castle was willing to pay the public school. These funds should stay within the public and continue to support the education of the students. Already funding for public schools is difficult to achieve and should not be taken lightly when Crown Castle is a very profitable company. The location of Marcos Deniza High School is better suited for these types of installations since it has taller structures, including building, stadium lighting, tree stadiums, and a much larger buffer between residential areas. The high school has several current towers and is surrounded by commercial buildings, unlike the proposed Desert Palm location. The 3 towers, I'm done. Thank you.
All right, thank you for reading the comments into the record. I currently in front of me have 3 comment cards from the public that are waiting to be heard. If you didn't fill one of these out, arrived just recently, fill one of these out and bring it forward. Do we have anyone on WebEx also looking to join?
Yes, we have Catherine Rosario. She submitted a card wanting to speak.
Yeah, I don't have a physical card in front of me, but I do know that she wanted to speak. Why don't we deal with that one first, just in case of technical difficulties? So if we can get Catherine on now, that would be best.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes, Catherine, we can.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I shared this online, but I don't know if it was said, so I just want to come here personally and say my comment. So I'm actually a Marcos Deniza alumni, graduate of class of 2014, Tempe resident of more than 1 decade, and a homeowner of La Tierra condominiums. I strongly oppose the 80-foot tower being built on Guadalupe Road. This structure is absolutely redundant if there's already an existing tower within 0.2 miles away at Marcos Deniza. We, as the La Tierra community, have done a full investigation of the profits that Campbell ANZ LLC have made, and they have enough funding and resources to take their project to remain at Marcos Deniza. So they should agree with Marcos Deniza to just build an additional structure within the same vicinity of the high school. The city of Tempe has already gone through enough developments in the past decade and few years alone, and has given too many passes to greedy corporations to walk over communities. We cannot allow for more structures to be built and devastate the peaceful, simple lifestyle that Tempe has provided us in the past. Furthermore, if Marcos Deniza is demanding more money for this corporation to maintain the tower within public school grounds, then so be it. That way, at least the money that is owed to Marcos Deniza will utilize the funds to better assist public schools. So again, I am asking to stop destroying the beautiful nature and community that we have already worked so hard to preserve. City of Tempe, please listen to your contingents as we, the people who will be the most affected by this impact on our health, lifestyle, home, and community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions? No, thank you for participating and calling in. With that, I will call for the first card before me, I believe it is Mark Bach. Did I get that right?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Got that right.
Mr. Bach, come on forward.
Thank you. Before I begin, let me just point out that Mr. Campbell said there was one cell carrier being involved, and their RF person said there was two, AT&T. So we already have a discrepancy in the record. I live at 1323 East Lieber Drive, just down the street. My name is Mark Bach. I'm not afraid to tell you where I live. There's no need for an 80-foot tower. Where is there an 8-story building anywhere along Guadalupe Road? Where's there's a 6-story building? Where's a 4-story building? There is no 80-foot building anywhere in that area, and this is not compatible. Per antennasearch.com, there are 99 cell phone towers within a 3-mile radius. This property and the properties to the north and east are zoned for residences. They're not zoned for industrial or commercial use. This is the wrong project in the wrong area. Use permit that Mr. Jimenez put together, the reason there's so low public input, the first notice had the wrong map. The second notice has a very small indication that it's a correction, so a lot of people didn't see it. I've provided Mr. Jimenez a petition for 20 people along Libra Drive. The majority of them don't recall seeing either of the two postcards. The reason I only got 20 is the people that weren't home weren't able to sign it. As far as the criteria for approval, I disagree. I think a 80-foot tower in the neighborhood is going to deteriorate the neighborhood. Jason Beck, a professor at Georgia Southern University, found a 7.6 reduction in selling prices for properties near cell towers. I'll be glad to give you the reference later if you need it. I also disagree with criteria 4. It is not compatible with the surrounding uses and structures. There's no cell phone tower anywhere near other than at the school, which is where it needs to stay. An elm monopole is nothing more than a cell phone tower. If you look at the existing ones, the arrays are clearly visible. The leaves do not cover the array. Anywhere you look, you see a cell phone tower. Let's go to the application, which is extremely misleading, inaccurate, and missing vital data. I'll zip through this. If you want me to slow down, let me know. Attachment 9, there's no showing that this is the least intrusive option. There's no showing that it extends or improves coverage. They just did it today, but not before. Certainly doesn't preserve the aesthetics of the area, and the number of towers isn't being reduced, it's going to be increased. There's no provision in the stipulations, unlike other cell towers that have been approved, that the previous towers are being reduced or removed. That tower is still going to stay at Marcos de Niza, so we just gained a tower. Use permit, City Code 6308 says the applicant has the burden of proof to prove that they meet the criteria. They have not met that proof. Attachment 19 of the applicant, all those photo views you saw are totally misleading. Not one of the photos are in comparison with what the pictures say. I'm running out of time. I'll get to the last one, which is most important. On November 16th, 2022, the Tempe Union School District approved an agreement with Crown Castle to have an antenna easement approved for 5 more years at Marcos de Niza High School. Here's the paperwork for that. I'd be glad to talk about more of it, but I ran out of time. I'll get the paperwork from Mr. Jimenez.
Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Bach? I appreciate all the info you presented. That was very efficient, and you pointed some things out. And now we'll get into, I'm sure, some questions and some answers to your questions for some of the points you brought up. Thank you. Let me get a chance to get back down to me. Next, I have Rachel Johnson.
Hi, Commission. Thank you for hearing all of us. I'm a little nervous, actually, so I don't I'm a little shy, but this is important. So I made my way here to speak and to plead my case in front of you guys because I'm extremely opposed to this 80-foot tower that Crown Castle is proposing. I actually went door to door to a lot of my neighbors to see if they were feeling the same way as me. I'm a resident at La Tierra, and it is, when you saw the photos, it's like within me to her. So it's very close. Like I can literally throw a stone over the wall and it's there. So, and I would like to get to the root, and I know I only have 3 minutes. So I actually created, after talking to my neighbors all saying no, I went on to change.org and I created a petition, and I got over 38 people who do not want this structure, this 80-foot tower. I then also contacted Marcos de Niza. I contacted their attorneys. I contacted the woman, Cindy, who actually is the one in negotiations. And every single person that I talked to that signed the petition, 38 different people in writing, online, signed it. I also explained to them that, that the public school wanted higher funds for the existing tower, and that, they actually, over those years, which you got to see the financial records, made $3 billion. They spent $800 million in land, in the land agreements. So therefore, there's $2 billion. I understand there's operating costs, but to be able to give an additional amount to a public school, that seems fair to me. And I would like to be able to see their financial records and to see the actual negotiations and see this go back to that school, as they have stadium lighting. And if you go and you drive down that road, you will see it is a better fit where it currently is, and it is a lot better than for a 501c church. And I also, when speaking to people, there is significant health that is factoring into how people are so disturbed and upset. And I will actually I own 2 condos. I will be selling both condos. And there is, like I said, well, we all have our phones, but we can all go online and see it is up to 20% property value decrease, and we actually vacation rental one. So when people come in and they see a huge tower in a complete desolate, and it does take, John went to school for landscape architecture, and so we know how long it takes to grow mature landscape, and it takes a really long time. And right now, currently, there's absolutely nothing at that church. So I don't know if they're going to be funding all of this, but it does not fit in. And I am so strongly opposed. I will be moving if this gets pushed through. So I thank you for hearing, and thank you. And my neighbor.
We have a question. My mic's off. We have a question for you, if you could come on back, just to prolong your agony here.
Yes,
Commissioner
I
Cassano.
might just ask you, you've contacted neighbors, you've checked all this research. Did you talk to the church?
I contacted the church 4 times. I talked to their secretary. I have emails. I have the data. They would not respond to me. And they, which this really hurts my heart, actually, because I know that this is rooted in complete greed, and I understand that, they're going to be getting money, but I emailed. She said that she was going to forward it on to the committee, because the committee of the church is the one that, does the voting, and Pastor Tom. And I've actually run my dog back there, and I've spoken to Pastor Tom many times, and I let them know that the health is a huge factor, that we don't want that much radiation that close to us. There's a Mandarin school, preschool that leases from them as well. And I said that that we really are opposed to this, and we would like to see it go the funds go back to the public school. And I wrote two emails. I wrote a follow-up email. Hey, I haven't heard anything. And I actually wrote on behalf of the HOA. The entire La Tierra HOA is opposed to this. They are opposed. And so they actually reached out to the church as the HOA, and nothing to them as well.
Well, yeah, that's what I wanted to find out.
Yeah,
if the church is
are not
responding.
speaking because they want that land lease. They want that money. They do not want it to go back. And it's not even, and there actually is another tower that's, because when I walk my dog, I see the other tower is right behind, there's a Panda Express. So there is one to the right. So there is another tower that's like just not that far, but is a lot more well hidden. Let's put it this way, I don't notice it. This one is gonna be like, oh, hello, random elm. So
Well,
the church doesn't
you've
care.
answered my question. The
Yes.
church is not responding to
Not
you.
responding to anything.
I
So
think
I also,
that you have a
yes.
problem with your church, the church
well,
in
and
the
then I also
neighborhood too.
gave,
That's,
yes, and I
it's a
gave,
shame.
yes, and so I also gave them a Google review.
Thank you. Were there any other questions, commissioners? No? All right, at this point, I will call Julie Rice. Julie Rice.
You'll have to excuse me because I'm very nervous. But I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my husband, who's 90, and we are strongly against this tower. My husband sits out and reads. I've got grandchildren that come around and play on the grass in front, and I just think it's going to be such an eyesore. The rental next door, it's a vacation, and if people come there, they're not going to come if this goes ahead. And we've been there a long time in La Tierra. So we're going to be right close to it. So I'm strongly against it.
Okay. Mrs. Rice, just for the record, can you state your name and city of residence?
It's Julia Rice.
Okay.
At 1402 East Guadalupe Road.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Commissioners, questions? Thank you for coming up.
Thank you
I hope
for
it wasn't too
listening.
painful.
Thank you.
It's all over. Like getting that shot. Just quick. We have an additional card, Thomas Catlaw.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Catlaw. I'm a resident of Tempe. My home is located at the east end of Lieber Drive, so at the other end, away from the high school. In thinking about this issue, I took a look at a document that's available on the City of Tempe website, and perhaps staff at some point could speak to whether or not this is still in place. But in 2018, the City of Tempe adopted standards, terms and conditions for the placement of cell towers. And in that document, the design standards for wireless facilities clearly state that the installation should blend into the existing streetscape with, quote, minimal visible impact. It strains credibility to suggest that an 80-foot tower in this particular neighborhood, let alone a 80-foot artificial elm tree in this neighborhood, fits into the streetscape with minimal visual impact. This might work in Flagstaff. It might be a perfectly reasonable solution in other kinds of neighborhoods. But if you were to spend 30 seconds at this corner and on this street, it is simply preposterous to suggest that this blends into the existing streetscape with minimal impact. In the proposal from the applicant, you'll find an allusion to the palm trees and suggesting that, well, there are palm trees in the neighborhood, so this is a legitimizing point of reference. Palm trees have been part of the existing streetscape in metropolitan Phoenix for 40, 50 years, and these are not an apropos point of comparison. So I do want to say that, in conclusion, I'm a little disappointed in the city for moving forward with this, given the obvious way in which this tower and its height does not fit in to its own or comport with its own standards for accommodating existing streetscapes. Thank you.
Questions, Commission? Thank you very much. This case? All right. Ms. Seeger, come on up.
Is there any way to pull up the slides of the pictures of the tower?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Are you talking the perspective drawings of what it looks like
Just
without it and with
from
it?
Libra Drive, the picture of the tower.
Okay, give us a second. We'll see if we can scroll to the one you're looking for.
I'm not sure which. Might be view one. There you go. Which one is she?
Okay, my name's Gigi Seeger, and I am a resident of Tempe, 85283 zip, and that's my house. And that's the tower, and we don't want it. That's all I have to say.
I don't know how to go with a follow-up question on that, but very, very to the point. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hold with me here. I'm just trying to keep up with the paperwork. Is that another, not for this case?
It was a comment card that was already read.
Oh, okay. Very good. All right. Anyone else that's wishing to be heard? Wave your hands. Seeing none, I will close.
Additional time? You read my comment earlier.
No,
Response to some of the.
no, I'm sorry. We've already read the comment in. If you would have wished to present it directly instead. Yep. Yeah, we can't take the comments from the audience. Thank you. All right, we're going to close the public comment portion. At this point, I'd ask the Lee, do you have anything that you'd like to speak to first, and then we'll bring the applicant? Okay. Then if the applicant could come back up and give you additional chance to respond to any questions or concerns you've heard.
Okay, thank you. First off, a couple of corrections. Yes, this is a co-locatable structure. T-Mobile will be moving over to it initially, and the AT&T antennas will move over there concurrently, or not concurrently, but once their lease is wrapped up with.
When you say move, where are they moving from, the AT&T?
AT&T is on the same pole. In fact,
so they're both on the same pole at Marcos?
Yes, they are.
And this is the pole that will be then decommissioned and removed at some point? Yeah, you can pass that over. All right, thank you for clarifying that.
Yes, what I've handed, and this goes back to the question from Commissioner Lloyd and Johnson. So T-Mobile and AT&T are on the same structure. It's a light pole at the ball field. Once they are both operational on this new structure, the old site will be decommissioned, meaning the antennas, the equipment will be taken out of there, and per the agreement, Crown Castle will take that pole down and put up a standard light pole, replacing the lights at the existing height. So it'll revert back to just a light pole. couple of responses. Mr. Bach mentioned 99 towers within 3 miles. And I too have been on the antenna.com webpage. I researched that quite a bit, but a lot of those referenced in there are small cells, which are the ones that go on power poles or streetlight poles and utility poles. That accounts for those towers. 99, I would have known if there was 99 towers out there because I drove the area routinely. There was a question about the taller building, nothing within a short distance or a mile or whatever. 4500 South Lakeshore Drive is a 6-story building. That's north of the site. Ms. Johnson, I believe she referenced that she could reach out and almost touch the facility, if I had my notes right. As I mentioned earlier, this proposed site is 405 feet west of the La Tierra condominium property line. And I think I got the points I wanted to address there. There was a question regarding the trees. The type and size of the trees was requested by staff. Along the north line, it's a hit and miss as far as where trees are now. So they will be initially offset from the utility easement that runs parallel to the north property line, and they will be staggered kind of in a zigzag pattern to fill in a lot of the holes there. And when you walk that part of the property, you'll see a lot of tree stumps where these trees over time have given it up. But those will all be replaced. They will be on the irrigation system of the church, and they'll be maintained by the church. Same thing along Guadalupe Road. I think the question was answered. The proposed natural trees are not included in the photo simulations. I think that is it. And in closing, yes, I request and ask for your support on this. The site meets the guidelines. It meets the city code for wireless facilities, whether it's design-wise and setbacks. So I can answer any questions you may have.
Questions from the commission? Commissioner Forte.
I'm curious about the financials. How much was the previous lease and what was the increase at Marcus Deniza?
Commissioner Forte, I'm not involved in that part of it.
Okay, that's too bad because I'm voting against it unless I hear something. Oh, sorry.
I don't
Audience,
have that
that's
information.
not helpful to us, so no cheering. Commissioner Lloyd.
But I do have a related question that maybe you can answer. Is there any opportunity to continue negotiations with the school district on keeping the location?
Commissioner Lloyd, I'm not involved in that side of it. From what I understand, the lease runs out towards the end of the year, and there has been a break-off in negotiations. That's handled by a different group.
And no one from here with your team today is in that loop?
I know the RF guys are not, so.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting them. Okay, appreciate it.
One other little point, there's a reference by one of the speakers that Profits of Campbell A&Z LLC are involved in this, which I found was really interesting. My wife really wanted to know where that is. But we're not involved in placing in any financial opportunity of the sites. We don't do that. That's
Understood.
just from the personal side of things.
Okay. Commissioner Miller.
Just a question. You referenced a location, I think it was 4560 South Lakeshore?
4,500, I think.
4,500. Oh.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I know. Is that site visible from the church site?
Not that I'm aware of.
Because I can tell you that site's 1.3 miles from the church site. Yeah. And I can tell you also, it's not visible. Okay. So I don't think that's a valid comparison.
Well, Commissioner Miller, what I was saying was there was a gentleman that spoke that there was nothing in the area of tall structure. So,
no. Point taken, but it's not really within the area that we're talking about.
Yes, sir. I agree.
And I have a question for staff.
We're going to have staff come back
great.
up. Let's
I'll come back to that then.
Yeah. Anything else for the applicant? Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Appreciate your time.
Lee, if you could come back, there was Commissioner Miller has a question for you, and then before I forget, there was something that was brought up by one of the speakers. Members of the public did ask for our guidelines for location of poles, monopoles, and telecommunication equipment. I'm not sure, did you catch that question?
I did catch the question,
Okay.
Chair DiDomenico. We don't have design guidelines other than the standards required for locating and when a use permit is required or not for a new facility, whether that's on a pole or building mounted. But other than the standards identified in the special use standards of the Zoning and Development Code, those are the only standards that I'm aware of that do not really include design standards outside of just meeting the use permit criteria in terms of compatibility.
Okay. Commissioner Miller.
Document on your website, terms and conditions for wireless placement.
We can't take random comments. It doesn't get in. But yeah, you feel free to reach out to staff and show them what you are referring to.
Sure. Domenico, maybe he's referring to wireless facilities within the right-of-way. Planning doesn't have purview over that. That is engineering and transportation. And they may have different standards and requirements that are outside of the planning's purview, since it's
public
not
right-of-way.
on property, real estate property.
Okay. All right. If after the meeting, maybe just touch base and see if there was something they're referring to that we should know about as commissioners that maybe we missed. So
Will do.
Commissioner Miller.
Lee, a quick question. The condition number 7 that is part of the proposed conditions for approval requires a significant increase in landscaping, which on its face would really be a significant benefit to what is really a barren site. Given that, however, these conditions are imposed upon the applicant, is that correct?
In order for the use permit to become effective, yes, that's correct.
And the applicant has stated that the responsibility for maintaining the landscaping is going to fall to the church, is that correct?
That's what the applicant said, that's correct.
And do we have any ability to condition the requirement that the church maintain these, given what the site looks like now?
It would be the obligation of the church to comply with the conditions of approval, since they authorize the applicant on behalf to have their facility leased on the site. And so they would be responsible for any complaints that are given if they're not conforming to or complying with their approved landscape plan or conforming to the landscape standards of the Zoning and Development Code.
Is that stated anywhere within this document?
It's a code requirement that they either have to abide by the approved landscape plan or the code requirements.
The applicant or the church or both? Because as I understand it, the applicant is not the church.
It would be the property owner that's obligated. That's ultimately responsible.
Ultimately, after the fact. It's going to be there, and then they're going to have to maintain the landscaping.
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Lee, I've got a couple for you.
Oh, sorry.
Regardless of how this case is adjudicated here or what happens to it, I'd like to make the request, just on the record, that staff take the appropriate take a look at the approved standards for the church site, and whether the monopole goes there or does not, that because there's so many dead trees along that alley line or the north property line that used to be there were probably part of an approved plan, that someone enforce on this site the approved plan that should be there, whether it's the new conditions of approval or just what was put in place.
We could include a condition of approval, which is one of our standards for replacing in dead or missing landscaping.
Yeah.
At the site.
Which works if this is approved and the applicant builds the pole there and puts the new trees in. What I'm saying is, if there was no application in front of us, like so many other commercial properties that have a lot of dead or missing landscaping, that code enforcement would make them comply with whatever site plan has been already approved and that they were built under.
That's correct. It would be code compliance's purview at that point.
Yeah. So if you could pass that message on to the right person. Another Another question, this one surprised me a little bit. So there was no need for a public meeting. The notice requirement went how far on this, out on this site?
The notification requirement is 600 feet from the property line of the site. And then also we notify residential associations, which consists of homeowners and neighborhood associations located within a quarter mile of the site.
Okay, so typical distance requirements.
Typical, yes, notification requirements for a use permit.
Okay. I want to say one thing in defense of staff and the process. A comment was made by one of the speakers that they were disappointed, I think was the word, that staff would even consider this or let this go forward. And I just want people to understand the process is property owners can apply for anything. They want to build a smoke shop, they can apply for that and bring that to staff and, pay their fee and have their day, in front of the commission to have it approved. If they want to build a second story on their house, they can do it. Doesn't mean the neighbors like it, doesn't mean people like smoke shop, doesn't mean anything, but it's staff's job to try and bring forward to the commission the best version of that request that conforms to what the city standards are. And then it's up to the commissioners to vote yea or nay on it, and same with city council. The staff can't just say, hey, go away. We don't like what you're bringing us. Everyone has their chance to make a pitch. And so they're the messengers in this case. And so I just want to, kind of come to their defense on that one issue. Other questions for staff? Ryan, anything else we're missing? We don't have anyone else that was hung up on, that couldn't get through? Okay. All right, then we're going to consider motions at this point in time. Do we have any commission motions? And then we can also take comments.
You want comments after a motion?
Let's, put a motion on the table is my preference, but.
I move for the approval of PL 220292.
With the conditions of approval?
With the conditions as stated.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion to get it under discussion.
All right, it's been moved and seconded by Commissioner Spears and Cassano. Commissioners, comments? Commissioner Lloyd.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to echo your comments about staff. I do think you put forward a good effort on a challenging design in terms of trying to incorporate the additional Chinese elm plantings along the property lines. I don't necessarily agree with the description that it's a stealth facility designed to blend in with the surrounding area. So I think that in terms of just what I've heard and seen tonight, I think there's been a good argument that it's not actually compatible with the existing surrounding structures. So for that reason, I won't be supporting moving forward.
Vice Chair.
I've read the section in code, in city code, that describes that there should be documentation of the steps that will be taken to minimize the visual impact of the proposed facilities. In comparison to the previous location, the existing location, it is set back quite a bit further than from any residential properties than this proposed facility is. I do see that it is, the mono elm facility, which is a little bit of camouflaging, maybe not the best, but the other facility happens to be in conjunction with a lot of very tall lighting that's associated with the stadium lighting, and actually blends in with the background much better than this does. So I think something that could have been helpful to present to us is a better understanding of why that negotiation didn't work, and you're unable to provide us any information related to that. this evening. So it's difficult for me to find that documentation that something that would, if it were to stay in place, would have been a much less visual impact to the surrounding community. So with that, I'm not really hearing enough to see that that has been covered tonight. So thank you.
Commissioner Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to state first, when I first read through this application, I was inclined to support it primarily because of the additional landscaping that was going to be added to the church site, which desperately needs additional landscaping, and then maintaining that landscape and keeping it alive. And living in the area and driving by that on numerous occasions, I see that routinely. The more I look at it, though, it is not compatible with the surrounding area. It's only going to detract further from it, and we've gotten no really good answers as to why the applicant or the company behind this couldn't actually figure out something with the high school district, which is a much more appropriate site in my mind. So I'll vote against it.
Chairman.
Other comments? Commissioner Spears.
First, I'd like to state that we are sitting as a quasi-judicial body when we look at use permits. There are 5 requirements that we look at. Whether or not the company has acted in good faith, with meeting with the school district or meeting with whomever, that's not part of our decision when it comes to this case. We have 5 requirements to look at, and compatibility with existing surrounding structures and uses, it's replacing a pole that's a few hundred feet away. So I feel for the neighbors, I understand. Everyone likes to have their internet and make sure things work quickly, and unfortunately that takes towers. I hate the design. I would rather see plain, it's a cell tower, but they don't look like palm trees, they don't look like pine trees, they don't look like elm trees, but they're a necessary factor in our environment. And based on what the criteria for the use permit is, staff has, I think, explained what's going on with the neighborhood and the fact that it's replacing a similar pole. I will be supporting the project.
Commissioner Miller.
I'd like to make a quick comment with regard to that. Looking at the 5 criteria for approval, I do not think that this application conforms to either number 3 or number 4. Number 3, specifically the contribution of deterioration, the staff's comments don't address that at all. They speak to something other than what the criterion is. With number 4, compatibility, an 80-foot fake tree isn't really compatible with the rest of the surrounding area. So I don't think they meet either of those 2 tests. So again, I'd reiterate, I will not support this.
Other comments? If not, I will call for a vote. No other comments? All right, we have a motion and a second. And I will call for a hand vote. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed? Motion fails by a vote of 6-1. As a reminder, as I said at the beginning of the meeting.
Chair DiDomenico?
Yes.
So we've got a failed motion, so now we need to create an affirmative motion if the case is for denial.
Yes.
I move for the denial of PL 220292.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Vice Chair Johnson, seconded by Commissioner Miller. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed? Motion carries by a vote of 6-1 with Commissioner Spears in dissent. As I said earlier, This decision is appealable and can be appealed directly to the city council. You have 14 days from today's action to do that. And staff can, you can catch them either after the meeting or during business hours, and they can instruct you on how that works. That brings us to item number 5 on the agenda, our final case. This is Lead Arizona Schools, 1602 South Priest Drive. I don't believe we have any comments to read in on this, do we? I don't believe anything to read into the record. So at this point, I will ask the applicant to come forward and tell us about your application.
Oh, awesome.
And
Good
just
evening.
name and city of residence.
My name is Jacob Kashwagi. I reside in the city of Mesa. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners, for hearing our case for a use permit. So we're looking to create a private middle school. The private middle school will be called Lead AZ. It will be a subsidiary of our nonprofit Leadership Society of Arizona. It will be a small middle school. We're looking really to focus on bringing a lot of attention and care to students who need more attention and a different type of learning environment than they could otherwise receive. And so the information is all up there. Our education and training is based off of multiple years of research. I was a former professor at Arizona State University. I taught there for many years and did a lot of research there. And so it's based off of actual business practices that we have implemented in the industry and continue to do so. I'm a researcher at heart. And so Leadership Society of Arizona has been doing this for 10 years. It was developed by 2 of my PhD students, and I have supported it. I've pretty much offered a lot of my hours and time over the years to just try to support high school students to be able to become emotionally stable as well as become leaders in society. You can see some of the metrics there. The biggest one isn't shown actually. It is that 85% of parents whose children come into our programs have seen significant changes in their children. But we agree with the City of Tempe's comments on our submittal. We are committed to do everything we can to make the environment that we are around and also to provide the most value to the students and the families that will come to our school, especially in the City of Tempe. And so bike racks, landscaping, we are trying to do everything we can to support this and are willing to fund it even. We are at the mercy of the management group of the location, though. We do believe that we've created a plan that will minimize any nuisances to the surrounding facilities as well as the public. Comment 6, if you look at comment 6, this is one of the biggest issues might be the traffic flow because this area was not built for that type of traffic flow. But I would like to remind you there's only going to be 35 students and not even 35 cars will be coming because multiple students might come from the same family. And so when you look at the drop-off location, it comes in a way that bypasses any actual business traffic. And so around the entire place. They'll come in the back of the buildings. And so not many cars actually park there or are there. And they will be dropped off. Now this occurs mainly at the beginning and the end of the day. And it's only going to be 35 vehicles, but we will coordinate with the parents ahead of time. We have a plan to stagger that. So you don't just have 35 vehicles coming at once. This will include also pickup as well. We're very flexible in how we do our education, so we can stagger even the pickup times as well to make sure that this doesn't interrupt anyone. We do have one coming. It is the coming up from the east south side into the complex and through in front of some of the buildings. We did this as a suggestion from the city to have two different ways they could come in. But if that is a big disruption, we're actually going to actually say only certain parents will come through that. So it will be minimal traffic still, even those coming from the city in front of the buildings. But we are amenable to adjust that if required. I think that's about it. We're all for the bike racks. One of the things I do want to comment on, this is a noise concern. We do realize that this is optimal because it's at the end of everything. So most of our walls do not border any other facility. So if the children do get loud, nobody will hear it. But there is our neighbor to the south of us. And we do realize they might have concern for noise. If you look at the slide, we are willing to put in noise, additional noise buffering if that is an issue. We don't think it will be because if you can look at our layout, everything along that south wall, which is the staff offices, the classroom, restrooms, none of that will involve anything very noisy. It will all be teaching areas, except for maybe the video game area, and we are amenable to adjust that if it is an issue. We will provide a lot of activities in terms of field trips and whatnot, which we will take the students off the site so that they can get their energy out during the week. So we are aware that they will need that. But I think that is about it. If you have any questions.
Commission? No? The light was on. Confused me. All right. Thank you very much. Sit tight.
Thank you.
And if staff can come and give us a brief presentation, anything you think is germane here?
Thank you. Good evening, Chair DiDomenico, Commissioners. Diana Kaminsky, Senior Planner with Planning Division of Community Development. The use permit is for a private middle school located at 1602 South Priest Drive. The location is in the northeast corner of an industrial complex. Across the street is Holdeman Elementary School. There are a variety of uses within the center itself. As the applicant indicated, they have a couple different egress points for circulation on the site, and they've identified the parking location for this particular suite. School use is similar to an office use in terms of the amount of parking that it would require, so they have 17 spaces allocated for their suite. These are elevations showing the existing building at the northeast corner. And the floor plan that they have shown, I don't know if noise will be an issue with the adjacent suite to the south. We didn't receive comments till today. I did notice they do have the lunchroom on the south side. That might be something they would want to relocate to the north side if that is an issue. Just to go through the use permit criteria for this, with regard to vehicular traffic, the site has 465 parking spaces provided, and we are asking the property manager to update their current 2011 parking model, not related to this tenant because this tenant is a like-for-like use of parking spaces, but because the parking analysis is that far out of date and we have a lot of new tenants, we want to make sure that we have an accurate count to the current tenants that they have in the different suites. The hours of operation from 7 to 8 a.m. would be the higher peak travel time for the school, and then again from 3 to 5 weekdays for when they are dismissed from school. So we do not see that there is a significant change to the traffic that would be generated by the size of the school that's being proposed at this location. The nuisances arising, this is an industrial office park. It's near a freeway, it's near an arterial street. We don't anticipate that there would be any noise above or nuisances above that would be generated within this area already. The contribution to the deterioration of the neighborhood or downgrading of property values. The site has a variety of tenants in the 8 buildings. Having a private school grades 6 through 8 in the business park may serve employees within the area, within the center and provides an opportunity of school choice. You might even have parents who have students across the street at Holdeman, and they have, as they get older, they go right across the street and drop their older siblings off there. So it may help reduce traffic for those who are working in the area as well. Compatibility with the existing surroundings. The existing building is not being changed. There are no outdoor play areas. Everything is contained within the suite that they're leasing. There is a school across the street as well. Adequate control of disruptive behavior. They have indicated through their operational plan that they would have staff outside the building supervising the traffic flow and making sure students got into the classrooms safely. And they have established 9 to 10 years of experience with student education. There was no need for a neighborhood meeting for this use permit request. We did receive one email of concern, and there was a follow-up email that you were provided earlier today. I don't know if they're here to speak this evening, but they did have concerns. They are the tenant to the south of this particular suite, and staff is recommending approval with the conditions. There are some non-standard conditions related to this request. We're requesting that the parking model be updated by the property management. They also need, the property manager also needs to replace that are missing plants that are associated with their existing approved landscape plan. That's a code enforcement requirement. And then specific to this tenant, they need to have bike parking, which they did show, but they showed it within a landscape required area. So we were requiring that those bike racks be moved outside of the required landscape area near their front doors so that there's no conflict with the students that may be biking to the site. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the commission? Very good, thank you. Okay, I have one card, and there's only one person in the room that I don't know who it is, so I'm guessing that you are Byron Torgerson. Come on down. Again, just name and city of residence.
Thank you, Commissioner and Commission. My name is Byron Torgerson, and I reside in Gilbert, Arizona, but my office is located in the Avon, the Enclave property area immediately adjacent to. I will share the building with the school. I apologize if I'm a little bit nervous. I don't do public speaking very well. VBFA has been in this building. We bought the building about 9 years ago. We are an owner of the building, and I am the principal director of the company there. We are a mechanical engineering firm with offices and designers and engineers located within our suite. We have constant meetings within our building where we meet with architects, clients, business owners. The city of Tempe is also one of my clients. And so we have ongoing meetings inside our building where discussions take place. And noise is a concern that we do have. The common wall between our office and the adjacent office is now being, on the other side in their space, we'll have a video gaming area, a classroom, a lunch break room, and we are concerned about the noise. VBFA is located within the same building as the proposed school. We have concerns regarding this type of facility located within the enclave due to the businesses that already exist in the facility. As stated before, it is an industrial complex. And within the facility, right across the parkway, are 2 industrial warehouses, both of which have semi-deliveries occurring on a daily basis. The one drop-off area, the yellow path that they indicated, is actually where those semis, the loading gates are, the loading bays are for those semis, which is now being shown as a pathway for drop-off of the students. The parking area around the facility, there are 20, and I agree with the presenter. The parking within our enclave is a disaster as far as who's been assigned what and what that parking study is. But I know within our building there are 25 available parking stalls, of which 12 are mine, allowing 13 for the other tenant. It's kind of an even split because we're the exact same size building. So there's only 13 stalls available left. Some of the stalls that they have shown for their drop-off are actually my stalls. And so I am concerned about that change on the documentation that they showed. Within the past few years, the enclave area has been inundated with a transient problem to the point that I have had to put security on my building to limit who can come in and out through an alarm system. We've had multiple situations where transients of a mental situation or a drug situation have come within my office and have impacted my staff. And so therefore I've had to put the security on my building. And I'm concerned as a parent of students next door, 6th to 8th graders, having to also deal with that situation which occurs within our facility. We have a state mental health facility 200 yards or 100 yards. It's in the same enclave. It's Teros Mental Health. Patients are constantly being brought there. They are wandering through the parking lot, accessing the different buildings, and they will be coming to this school wanting to come into the building as they do come into my office. Motel 6 is immediately to the south of our complex. As you know, that is a hotbed for police activity. We have contacted the City of Tempe Police Department. Our enclave is a constant watch area because of the activity that takes place in the Motel 6. These students will be subjected to that same activity, which is just the other side of the street there, Motel 6. We've talked about the 2 warehouses. The drop-off area that they have shown, the time frames that they have shown, my staff, I have 12 staff in my building. My staff is 8 to 5, so the drop-off and the leaving time for my staff is the same time as their time. There is no available parking in front of my building or across the way. That is all occupied by staff in my building and Ellison and it's called Live Bearded. Those parking are all taken up in the morning. So the only place available is that pathway between the 2 buildings for that drop-off. So I appreciate the education process. I appreciate what the gentlemen are trying to do. I am an advocate of education, but at the same time, I have to think about my business and what the impact of this school adjacent to my business may be. I thank you for your time.
Question. So is this a condominium building where you actually own?
Yes, I
your
own
building?
my half, yes.
Do the CC&Rs for this enclave project have any prohibitions of certain types of uses, medical use?
I reached out to
schools?
Cushman Wakefield, who are the administrators of our association, to ask them, and they are of the understanding today that the CC&Rs would not allow this type of facility inside our association. I can't speak absolutely, sir.
And do you have a copy when you bought, how long ago did you buy your building?
9 years ago.
And you would have been provided a copy of those
Yes,
CC&Rs.
and I'm embarrassed to say I don't have that, and that's my
There's
fault.
something you can also search for, and there'll be a recorded document. That's not so far back that you won't be able to just access them, most likely online.
Yes.
If the folks at Cushman Wakefield won't provide them to you. Does Cushman Wakefield also manage the building? They the property management
They are
company?
the property management group, yes, sir.
Okay. All right, appreciate that. Commissioner Lloyd.
Thank you, Chair. Do you know if your demising wall goes all the way up to the deck?
It does.
So
It is from.
Okay, so that's good to help with the noise mitigation potentially. The semi, what hours do the semis usually come?
It's hit and miss. It depends on when they have deliveries. It can be any time of the day.
But it's not necessarily always kind of the same hours as the pickup and drop off?
And not necessarily all those times, no.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions from the commission? Thank you very much. I
Thank you for
appreciate
your time.
it.
I appreciate it.
At this point, if the applicant wishes to come back and comment on anything, any questions or concerns that have been brought up?
There's only a couple of things. One is the parking spaces. First, the ones that we have blocked off, if you look at the map, it is only ours, actually. They do have 2 in that area, but the ones that are blocked off will only be ours. And really, it's only going to be 1 car at a time that will come in, and they're just going to be there to drop off the kid, and we will be out there to monitor.
How many staff will you have on site?
We will have around 7 to 10 at any given time.
And
for
where will they
35
park?
students.
Where will they park if
So
if
here's
you've got-
our staff with all the parking. They will have their parking spaces. Remember, parents are just coming in to drop off. They're not actually parking. So there's actually, I was told there's 19 parking spaces designated for us. And so I'm not sure where the other gentleman is getting his information. We reached out to Cushman & Wakefield as well, and that's who told us, how many parking lots were for us. There is much more than 25 for that area, though, I can tell you that. But we'll have more than enough for our staff, which will only be 7 to 10. And for 35 students for a school, that's unheard of, 1 to 5 ratio almost. So, but then when the parents are coming, you need to realize that it's the line that you're worried about, interrupting businesses. The parents can form the line wherever. If there's semis in the way, they can go other places because they're not letting their children off where the semis are. They're letting their children off right in front of the building, so there won't be any safety concerns there. It was more of just making sure it's not in the way of other businesses and whatnot.
So are you proposing are you going to be a tenant in this building, or are you buying the building?
We are buying the building.
Okay. And there's a broker that represents you in this transaction, or is it Cushman Wakefield?
No,
also?
there's a broker who represents us. And from what we know, they've received all the permissions from the property management. We've been working with them to get the parking structure and work with them on the bike racks and whatnot.
I'm just some advice, not that you've asked for it, but I do this for a living.
Yes.
Make sure that your representation has combed through the CC&Rs, because no matter what your property manager tells you or your broker tells you, the underlying recorded document, the CC&Rs, are going to govern the types of uses that are and aren't allowed in there. And it is very common for condoed projects, whether they were built that way or converted, to have restrictions for medical, dental, and school uses. Not that that's a bad thing, it's just that those uses tend to be very demanding on parking, and so oftentimes that's why it's put in there. But I would hate to see you investing a lot of time and energy and money, relying on the advice of professionals, only to find out too late that other business owners come and hand you a document that's highlighted that tells you can't do what you want to do. So,
yes,
for what it's worth.
Thank you for that. From what I know, and from because we do have a broker who has been working, and the deal is almost finalized. It's pending upon the use permit.
Yeah.
So from what I know, it meets all the CC&Rs of the area or of the complex.
Good.
But,
and it sounds to me like you are willing in your design of your interior layout to do anything and everything you can to be a good neighbor, to soundproof or relocate the layout of the space.
Definitely. The last thing we want is our next door neighbor not liking us, right? And so
good attitude.
We agree with that.
Other questions, commissioners? Thank you very much. All right, we have no other public comments, no cards, no one online. It's just us. Commissioners, anyone want to put a motion on the table, or do we want to have some discussion, comments? Commissioner Lloyd?
Maybe a question for Diana. I don't recall, and I'm not sure if this is a condition, but and it might go, well, let me ask you, in terms of the sound, is there anything that we can stipulate that they do to make sure that sound is mitigated on that south wall?
I was actually wondering if I could ask Ryan the same question, if there could be a condition added. We don't typically deal with interior space, but I know we have on live entertainment permits to have soundproofing. So if that's something that we could stipulate, it may be inclusive of relocation of lunchroom and game room to the north side, switching the location of the private study rooms. So the private study rooms are on the south side, and the noisier uses potentially being on the north side, and then additional sound transmission rating material on that south wall. Is that something we can stipulate?
Commission members, there's a number of ways you could certainly address it. One could be the uses of the suite in the area, or the other sound attenuation pertaining to the wall, if they could improve the sound transmission class for the adjacent two suites. A couple options to consider.
Thanks. So I guess if we can make that some sort of a condition, I'd like to see that as a condition for approval if we're able to do that.
Do you want me to draft something? Or?
Is it possible for me to make a suggestion?
Yeah, yes, and at the podium so we get it recorded and on the record.
I also wanted to point out there is a urgent care medical clinic a few doors down from this in the same center.
I did see that. I was on the property not too long ago, and a lot of the businesses that were listed are either, might have changed, or I know a couple of them are on their way out the door, or out of the project.
When we've run into these kind of acoustical issues, we typically recommend, and I'm an architect and facility manager, we typically recommend an additional 5/8 chipboard, which takes it from a 45 STC, which is what you're talking about, to a 55. And so that's pretty significant, and that will render him not being able to, he might hear a noise, but he won't be able to discern anything. So I think that would, and we've used that for a lot of our clients and with a lot of success.
And this particular space, you agree, it's full height to the deck?
Yeah.
Demising?
And we would take the 5/8, especially in the noisy areas. I don't know if they're needed in their office areas. And we'd be willing to work with the client to do that. We want to meet his criteria, and so that would be what I would suggest, and it would be easy for both parties.
Is it possible to flip the video and lunchrooms to the north side of the suite?
So the lunchrooms I recommend against, but because that would be potentially moving plumbing, the other is an easy switch. But
yeah, you're part of the team.
Thank you. Yes, the lunchroom isn't where they're going to be eating the lunch. It's just where the refrigerator is at.
Oh, okay.
So that's just
not a cafeteria, just a prep.
That is so small, nobody can eat there. It's not meant to eat there. It's just meant to hold the food. Okay. So we can locate where they eat, and we can relocate the video game area as well.
Okay. Then if Commissioner Lloyd was going to make a motion with the requirements of those stipulations in there, I would love to have something drafted out, and I know that Diana's writing, so I bet that's what's happening. So do we have any additional comments or other concerns that we'd like to bring out now while we stall for time?
I'll just add the point that you made. There's definitely, recorded declarations for this condo, which does talk about use and certain things that owners should do if they're not already an approved use. So I think y'all might want to double check that to make sure everybody's following the protocol for the association. And there's also language in there that if a nuisance is created, the association has remedies for that too. So outside of what we approve, there'll be other remedies in place in case drop off and pickup do become more of a burden on the property.
Diana, do you have something you want to float out there?
I just want to clarify, is it only the use swap or also the acoustical wall?
Could we do either or?
I could word it as such, yes.
I think that the commission's preference would be the additional acoustic buffering by the JIP and making sure everything goes all the way to carry that all the way to the deck.
Okay. On the south wall. On the south
That's
wall.
the south wall of the space in the application, north wall of the of Mr. Torgerson's space.
Yeah, it wasn't.
And in addition, I think that we are requesting the movement of the noisy room, the video
Okay.
room to the north side of the suite.
Yeah, it wasn't clear to me because it was called out as a lunchroom. I assume that's a lunchroom. So if it's a kitchen, we probably need to have the floor plan identify it as kitchen, and maybe the multipurpose area is where they're actually dining. But the applicant shall relocate the video room to the north side of the school suite and add 5/8" acoustical board along the south interior wall to increase the STC rating to 55 decibels.
Yes. And the applicant is nodding their head, so I'm assuming that they're in agreement with that stipulation.
We were planning to do that anyways.
Okay.
Oh.
All right.
Well, we were feeling good about ourselves for a minute there, and now. Commissioner Lloyd, do you have any other questions or motion?
And no
You're on a
more
roll.
questions, but yes, if I can make a motion for approval with the condition or added stipulation regarding the noise mitigation that Diana just put forward.
Okay, so we have a motion for approval of PL 230018. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
And we have a second from Commissioner Casano. Any discussion? All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor, raise your hand. And the motion is approved 7-0. And that covers all of our items today. First of all, thank you everyone for bearing with that last little bit there. Commission members, do we have announcements? City staff, do we have any announcements?
Thank you, Chair DiDomenico. For our special hearing we have on March 14th, we got 2 agenda items. The Cashier residents seeking a use permit for parking in the front yard setback, and then a general plan, map amendment, PAD overlay, and development plan review for a new 566 dwelling unit mixed-use project at IDM Fountainhead at 2750 South Priest Drive. And I would also like to note that Lee Jimenez's his last DRC agenda hearing is tonight. He will be leaving the city on March 10th. We've appreciated all of his service he had for the city of Tempe. He's moving on to greener pastures with flood control district. So we
I've heard
appreciate
of
his
that
time.
place before.
Yeah, his professionalism, and he'll be sorely missed with us, definitely.
Well, yeah, I'll echo that. Normally I prepare a long speech when I have more advance warning, but for these many years, it's been fantastic working with you. I'm glad we finished on a good note where we had a case that, you were able to take us through. We're gonna miss you.
I'm gonna miss this place too. It's just bittersweet. I'm going full circle to where I started my career in public service. I actually interned for the flood control district. It was during the recession, so there was no planning openings anywhere. So I got a job there as a development services tech for 3 years. Then I went to McDOT, became a transportation planner. And then I came over here, and now I'm going full circle and returning to the flood control district. And I'll be a project manager there in the planning or in the project management division.
And where will you office? What part of town?
We're in the Durango complex, so near Tent City.
Yeah.
The lunch options are limited.
You're not making the change for the environment then, are you?
No, but it could be a healthy move. Less enticement for going out and eating lunch at restaurants. So I'll be bringing my lunch more often. So I'm hoping that's a positive impact.
If you look around, I hear you can find green bologna in the area.
Oh, I'm sure of that.
Yeah.
No, but on the record, I'd like to thank the city for the opportunity and having me. It's been a great 7 years. I enjoyed everyone I've worked with, the commission, the boards, the hearing officers at the time. It's been a pleasure working for the city. And I hope if I do decide on coming back, they would accept me again. So
I'll write a reference for you. That won't help, but I'll do it anyway. Well, thank you.
Thank you
very much. Ryan, boy, I don't know how many chairs you can fill, but.
Oh, by the way, Jeff's not here either, too. He's on medical leave, so.
Yeah, I'm just so used to him coming to all the meetings that I just went off and said that without even looking in the audience, so.
I think I said that because he's probably watching us right now.
Yes, he is. Well, Jeff, if you're out there, feel better. All right. With that being said, meeting adjourned.